Welcome to the Blending Worlds podcast, where identity and psychology meet across cultures. Tune into a new podcast every week. Welcome to the first episode of the Blending Worlds podcast. My name is Chris Richards and I'm your host. The Blending Worlds is a space where we explore how psychology and culture shapes who we are and how aspects like faith, family, and personal experiences influence our identity. So, just a little backstory on myself. I was actually born outside of the US on a beautiful Caribbean island that you've probably heard of called Jamaica. I moved to the US as a young child and I navigated being caught in between two cultures all throughout my childhood and my adolescent years, something I actually plan on delving deeper into in next week's podcast, so stay tuned for that. Throughout my college career, I've actually double majored in both psychology and criminology with a focus on cultural psychology. Now, this zeal for cultural psychology has actually emerged pretty recently. Over the past few years, I've actually had the amazing ability to travel quite a lot to various countries throughout the Caribbean. I started this podcast because, one, as a first generation immigrant, I never really felt like there's enough conversations regarding a lot of the struggles that you do have navigating being that, or even just coming from different diverse cultural backgrounds. I never felt like there was a space where I felt heard or seen, where a lot of these conversations were happening publicly. But also, like, I've definitely developed a passion for understanding people across cultures and hearing people's experiences. Now, like I mentioned before, I am a first generation immigrant, so this might definitely be based on the fact that me myself, like, I can genuinely empathize with a lot of the struggles that people do have, because I know what it's like to experience being between two cultures. But also, I think there's a lot more conversations that we could be having that everyone can connect to, whether that's mental health, identity, or even being in environments with various groups of people. So I wanted to cultivate a space where people felt heard and seen, and where we could have these difficult conversations that weren't happening publicly. So I just want to give a little vision for this podcast on what you guys can expect in future episodes. Now, you guys can expect me to go into really deep dives into psychology and culture, but also, like I mentioned before, like mental health, family structures, and even like I wanted to talk a bit about my own anecdotal experiences traveling abroad in Mexico and Panama and Costa Rica, or even like traveling throughout my state, or even some of the people that I've had the amazing opportunity of meeting throughout my college experience. I definitely, like I mentioned, I really want to touch on social issues like mental health, poverty, identity, even being from different socioeconomic classes. Like, I really want to dive into the conversations that I feel like are being had, but aren't being had in a way where we truly feel like we can connect and empathize. So I do want to preface that this is not an academic lectural podcast or a speech, but a space where real life stories, research, and even personal anecdotal conversations will intersect. Identity is definitely much more complex than we often think. It's not just who you are, but it's also your culture, your personal experiences, and your influences, such as even like your faith, that shapes how we view ourselves and the world, which in fact ends up shaping how we navigate the world as a whole. This podcast is about exploring how our worlds blend, and I want each and every one of my listeners to be able to feel like they're actually a part of this conversation, and to feel seen, to feel heard, and to just be in a space that they feel like they belong. So that's definitely my vision for this podcast. I definitely hope that you guys tune into future podcasts because I'm super excited for this project. It's definitely something that I've been thinking about for a while now, and I finally decided to do it. So I just want to thank each and every person for listening and tuning in. Stay tuned for next week's podcast and the podcast after that and the podcast after that, because boy, will I be sharing some stories and some anecdotal experiences, and I definitely feel like it's worth the listen. Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. If you do feel like this is a podcast that you will enjoy, feel free to share it with your friends and on your social media pages, to tag me on Instagram and TikTok. And thank you guys for tuning in and for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.